The dust cloud rose before Willa Dawson could even see the riders coming, and her older sister Vivienne stood tall on the porch while Willa shrank back into the doorway shadow, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Their father had been dead 3 months now, taken by fever, and their mother had followed him 2 weeks later, leaving the two sisters alone on a struggling ranch outside Las Lunas, New Mexico, in the scorching summer of 1878. Vivienne had always been the bold one, the beautiful one who could look any man in the eye and speak her mind without a tremor in her voice, while Willa preferred the company of books and the quiet sanctuary of their kitchen, where she could lose herself in the rhythms of kneading bread and churning butter. The riders materialized from the heat shimmer on the horizon, 3 men on horseback, and Willa instinctively pressed herself closer to the doorframe, peering around Vivienne's shoulder as her sister planted her hands on her hips in that defiant way she had. "Afternoon," the lead rider called out, pulling his horse to a stop at the fence line. He was tall in the saddle, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of prairie grass after spring rain. Dust clung to his black hat and the bandana tied loosely around his neck, and when he dismounted with easy grace, Willa found herself studying the way he moved, all coiled strength and quiet confidence. "Name's Wade Yates. These are my brothers, Frank and Henry. We heard there might be work available here." Vivienne laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Work, mister, we can barely feed ourselves. Our father passed and left us with debts we cannot pay and land we cannot manage. Unless you are offering charity, I suggest you ride on." Wade Yates removed his hat, revealing dark hair that curled slightly at the ends from sweat and the relentless New Mexico sun. He did not look at Vivienne when he spoke again. His gaze had shifted, caught on something else, and Willa realized with a jolt of terror and strange excitement that he was looking at her. She had not moved far enough back into the shadows. His green eyes found hers through the gap between the door and Vivienne's shoulder, and something in his expression changed, softened in a way that made her breath catch. "You there," he said, his voice dropping to something quieter, almost reverent. "Behind your sister. Step forward where I can see you properly." Willa felt her face flame hot. Vivienne turned, surprise flickering across her features, and reached back to touch Willa's arm. "My sister is not part of this conversation," Vivienne said firmly, but Wade shook his head. "Meaning no disrespect, miss, but I was not talking to you." His attention remained fixed on Willa, and he took a step closer to the porch, his hat held respectfully against his chest. "Please, come forward." Willa wanted to disappear into the house, to run to her room and hide under the quilts her mother had stitched with such care and patience. But something in the way Wade Yates looked at her, something in the gentleness of his request rather than a demand, made her feet move. She stepped around Vivienne, emerging fully into the harsh afternoon light, and wrapped her arms around herself protectively. She was smaller than her sister, softer in face and form, with light brown hair that refused to hold a curl and eyes that were more gray than blue. Next to Vivienne's striking beauty, Willa had always felt plain as flour, unremarkable as dust. Wade stared at her for a long moment, and then he smiled, slow and genuine. "You are the one I want," he said simply, and the two brothers behind him exchanged glances. "I will work your land for you. All 3 of us will. We will help you get this ranch back on its feet, make it profitable again. In exchange, I ask for room and board, fair wages when you can afford them, and the chance to court you properly." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Willa opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. Vivienne stepped forward, placing herself partially between them again. "Now wait just a minute. You ride onto our property, a complete stranger, and make such a proposition. What kind of man does that? A desperate one, Wade admitted, his eyes still on Willa, but an honest one. My brothers and I have been working cattle drives and ranch jobs from Texas to Colorado for the better part of 5 years. We are good at what we do and we work hard. But I am tired of drifting. I am 24 years old and I want to build something, put down roots. The moment I saw your sister, I knew. He finally looked at Vivienne and his expression was earnest. I know how that sounds. I know I seem mad or foolish or worse, but I am asking you to give us a chance. 1 month. Let us prove our worth and let me prove I am sincere. Vivienne looked at Willa, her eyebrows raised in question. This is not my decision alone to make. Every instinct in Willa's body screamed at her to say no, to send these strangers away, to protect herself from the vulnerability of letting someone see her, truly see her. But their situation was dire. The bank had sent 2 letters already about the mortgage payments they had missed. The cattle were scattered across land they could not properly manage alone. The well needed repairs and the roof leaked in 3 places. Pride would not feed them through winter and fear would not save their home. 1 month, Willa heard herself say, her voice barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again, louder this time. 1 month to prove yourselves. But I make no promises about courting or anything else of that nature. Wade's smile widened, transforming his whole face from handsome to something that made Willa's stomach flutter in a way she did not entirely understand. That is all I ask. Thank you, Miss Dawson. Willa Dawson. And this is my sister, Vivienne. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Wade replaced his hat and turned to his brothers. Frank, Henry, let's get our gear and settle the horses. Ladies, if you will show us where we might bunk, we will get started first thing tomorrow morning. The brothers turned out to be as good as Wade's word. Frank was the youngest at 20, all lanky limbs and easy laughter, with a talent for fixing anything mechanical that left Willa amazed. Henry, at 22, was quieter but possessed an almost supernatural understanding of animals. Within 3 days, he had rounded up most of their scattered cattle and assessed what needed to be done to improve the herd's health. Wade himself seemed to know a bit of everything, from mending fences to reading account books, and he threw himself into the work with a focused intensity that left him exhausted by nightfall. Willa watched them from the kitchen window as she prepared meals, observed how Wade always seemed to know where she was, how his gaze would drift toward the house throughout the day as if to reassure himself she was still there. It unnerved her and thrilled her in equal measure. Vivienne noticed too and took to teasing Willa gently when they were alone, but there was concern beneath the humor. He seems decent enough, Vivienne said one evening as they washed dishes together. But you barely know him. Do not let yourself be rushed into anything. I am not being rushed, Willa protested, though her cheeks warmed. He has barely spoken to me beyond thanking me for supper. Yes, but he looks at you like you are water in the desert. Vivienne handed her a dripping plate. Just be careful with your heart, little sister. I would not see it broken. That night, as Willa lay in bed listening to the coyotes sing in the distance, she thought about Wade Yates and his declaration. You are the one I want. No one had ever wanted her specifically, chosen her deliberately when Vivienne stood right there like a bright flame drawing every eye. It felt like a dream, too fragile to be real, and she was afraid to examine it too closely lest it vanish like morning mist. The month passed faster than Willa thought possible. The Yates brothers transformed the ranch from a failing enterprise into something that resembled the prosperous operation her father had run before illness took him. The fences stood straight and strong, the cattle grew sleeker, the well pump worked smoothly, and Frank had even managed to repair the roof. Wade kept his promise about courting, approaching it with the same patient determination he brought to everything else. He would find excuses to talk with Willa, small conversations about the weather or what supplies they might need from town, gradually growing longer and more personal. "Tell me about your life before here," Willa asked one afternoon when she brought cold water out to the men working under the brutal sun. She directed the question to all three brothers, but it was Wade who answered. "Not much to tell that is interesting. Our parents died when Henry was just a boy. Yellow fever took them both within days of each other. I was 14, suddenly responsible for two younger brothers. We made our way doing whatever work we could find. Some years were harder than others." He accepted the ladle of water gratefully, drinking deep before continuing. "But we stayed together. That was important to me. We are family and that means something." "It means everything," Willa agreed softly, thinking of her own sister, how lost she would be without Vivienne's strength. "What about you?" Wade asked, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. What does Willa Dawson dream about? No one had ever asked her that before. She looked down at the bucket in her hands, watching the water's surface ripple. "Small things, I suppose. A garden where I could grow vegetables and flowers, children laughing in the yard. A full pantry and no fear of winter. Peace." She glanced up at him through her lashes. "Boring dreams compared to adventure and travel." "Not boring at all," Wade said firmly. "Those are the dreams worth having, the ones about building something lasting, creating a home. I dream of those things too." The month ended on a Friday. That evening, Vivienne called a meeting in the parlor, and the five of them sat in the cramped space that still held their mother's embroidered cushions and their father's pipe on the mantel. Willa's hands twisted in her lap as Vivienne spoke. "You have more than proven yourselves," Vivienne said formally. "The ranch is in better condition than it has been in 2 years. We owe you a debt we cannot fully repay, but we will do our best. If you wish to stay on permanently, we would be glad of it. We can offer wages now, modest but regular." Frank and Henry looked at Wade, letting him speak for them. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his attention on Willa. "My brothers and I would like to stay, yes. But I need to know something first." He stood, crossing to kneel before Willa's chair in a gesture that made her heart race. "Willa Dawson, this month has been the best of my life, not because of the work, though I am proud of what we have accomplished, but because I have had the privilege of knowing you, of watching you move through your days with quiet grace and kindness. You are gentle with the animals, patient with your sister, generous with what little you have. You bake bread that tastes like home should taste, and you hum while you work, old hymns your mother must have taught you. I have fallen in love with you, completely and without reservation. I want to court you properly now, with the intent of making you my wife someday if you will have me. But I need to know if that is something you might want too." The room fell silent. Vivienne watched Willa carefully. Frank studied the ceiling while Henry suddenly found his boots fascinating. Willa felt suspended in the moment, teetering on the edge of something vast and terrifying and wonderful. "I barely know you," she whispered. "Then let me spend every day helping you know me better. Let me earn your trust and your affection. I am not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Willa. I am just asking for the chance." She thought about the month past, how Wade had shown her through his actions what kind of man he was. He worked until his hands bled without complaint. He was kind to his brothers, respectful to Vivienne, and he looked at Willa like she was something precious. When she was near him, she felt safer and braver somehow, as if his confidence could lend her some of its strength. "Yes," she said quietly, and then louder, "Yes, you may court me." The smile that broke across Wade's face was like sunrise. He took her hand carefully, as if it were made of spun glass, and pressed his lips to her knuckles in a kiss that sent warmth flooding through her entire body. "You will not regret this," he promised. "I swear it." The courting that followed was unlike anything Willa had imagined. Wade seemed determined to know every part of her, asking endless questions about her thoughts and opinions and dreams. He brought her wildflowers from the hills, their petals already wilting in the heat but beautiful nonetheless. He convinced her to ride out with him to check the far pastures, and though she was nervous on horseback, his steady presence beside her made it bearable. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, and Willa found herself opening like a desert flower after rain, sharing parts of herself she had kept hidden for years. "Why me?" she asked one evening as they sat on the porch steps, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and crimson. "Vivienne is so much more beautiful." Wade turned to her with such intensity that she almost looked away. "Your sister is striking, I will grant you that. But beauty is common, Willa. What you have is rare. You have a spirit that glows from within. You are brave enough to be gentle in a hard world. You think before you speak, and when you do speak, your words have weight. When you smile, truly smile, it is like watching clouds part. I do not want striking or bold. I want you, exactly as you are." Tears pricked her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her this way, as if she were valuable simply for existing. She let herself lean against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, and Wade carefully put his arm around her waist, holding her like she was something that might spook and flee. "I am falling in love with you too," she admitted in a whisper. "It frightens me." "Me too," Wade confessed. "I have never felt this way before, like my heart might beat right out of my chest when I see you, like I would fight anything or anyone to keep you safe. It is overwhelming." "But good?" Willa asked hopefully. "Better than good. The best thing that has ever happened to me." Summer softened into autumn, and the ranch continued to flourish under the brothers' management. Vivienne had initially been skeptical of the arrangement, but even she could not deny the evidence before her eyes. They were making money again, enough to pay down the debt and begin building modest savings. More than that, the ranch felt alive in a way it had not since their father's death, filled with laughter and purpose. Frank had taken a shine to Vivienne, though he was wise enough to keep his admiration mostly to himself. Willa noticed the way her sister's expression would soften when Frank told one of his ridiculous jokes, or how Vivienne always made sure he got extra portions at dinner. There might be something there eventually, Willa thought, but Vivienne had always been cautious about matters of the heart. Henry seemed content with his solitary work with the animals, though he opened up more as the months passed. He had a dry wit that caught people by surprise and a talent for whittling. Small wooden figures began appearing around the house, a horse on the mantel, a bird on the kitchen windowsill, a perfect miniature coyote on Willa's bedside table. "Did you make this?" she asked him one morning. Henry shrugged, embarrassed. "Saw you watching the coyotes that morning last week. Thought you might like it." "I love it," Willa said warmly. "Thank you, Henry. You are very talented." The praise made him duck his head, but she saw the pleased smile he tried to hide. Wade's courting grew gradually bolder as Willa's comfort with him increased. He would take her hand when they walked, tuck flowers behind her ear, steal moments alone where he might brush a kiss against her temple or her cheek. Each touch was a question, and Willa found herself answering yes more readily each time. "Yes, you may hold me. Yes, you may kiss me. Yes, yes, yes." Their first real kiss happened on a cool October evening. They had ridden out to check on the north pasture and stayed to watch the sunset. Wade spread his coat on the ground for them to sit, and they talked as the sky darkened and stars began to emerge in the endless expanse above them. "Willa," Wade said softly, and when she turned to look at him, he cupped her face in his calloused hands. "May I kiss you properly?" Her heart thundered, but she nodded, and Wade closed the distance between them with aching slowness, as if giving her every chance to change her mind. His lips met hers, soft and tentative, a question in physical form, and Willa answered by pressing closer, her hands clutching at his shirt. The kiss deepened, and she felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, untethered from everything she had known and soaring into something new and thrilling. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wade rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said raggedly. "God help me, Willa. I love you so much it consumes me." "I love you too," she replied, the words feeling both strange and perfect in her mouth. "I think I have loved you since that first day when you saw me and chose me. You are the only one I will ever choose," Wade promised. "The only one I want, now and forever." They kissed again and again, until the night grew cold enough that propriety demanded they return to the house. Willa felt transformed, aware of her body and her heart in ways she never had been before. This was what the romance novels talked about, what made poets write endless verses. This connection, this rightness of being with someone who saw all of you and loved what they found. As autumn deepened into winter, Wade began talking more seriously about the future. He wanted to marry her, that was clear, but he approached it with characteristic patience and care. One evening in November, after a simple dinner where Vivienne announced she and Frank were officially courting, Wade asked Willa to walk with him despite the cold. They bundled in coats and scarves, their breath misting in the frigid air as they made their way to the barn. Inside, away from the wind, Wade had set up a small area with blankets and a lantern. It was warm from the animals and smelled of hay and horse, not unpleasant. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," Wade said, leading her to sit beside him on the blankets. He took both her hands in his, rubbing warmth into her cold fingers. "Willa, I know we have only been courting for 4 months. I know that is not very long by conventional standards. But I have been thinking." Willa's pulse quickened, but she stayed quiet, letting him gather his thoughts. "I want to marry you," Wade continued. "I want to wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to build our future together, to have children with you, to grow old watching sunsets from that porch. But I will wait as long as you need. If you want a year to be certain, or 2 years or 5, I will wait. I just need to know if marriage is something you want eventually." Willa studied his face in the lantern light, this man who had come into her life like a summer storm and changed everything. She thought about the past 4 months, how happy she had been, how right it felt to be with him. She thought about waking alone in her bed each night, knowing he slept in the bunkhouse, and how much she wanted that to change. She was 19 years old enough to know her own heart, and her heart knew Wade Yates was the man she wanted beside her for all her days. "I do not want to wait years," she said slowly. "I want to marry you, Wade, as soon as we can arrange it." His expression blazed with joy. "Truly, you are certain?" "I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you. You are good and honest and hardworking. You are kind and patient with me. You see me, truly see me, and you love what you see. How could I want anything else?" Wade pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe, but she did not mind. She clung to him just as fiercely, feeling the solid reality of him, the promise of their future together. "We will do this properly," Wade said, pulling back enough to look at her. "I will ask Vivienne for her blessing since your father is gone. We will plan a real wedding with a minister and whatever you want. I am not a rich man, Willa, but I will give you everything I can." "I do not need riches," Willa assured him. "I just need you." They kissed then, deeper and more passionate than before, hands roaming in ways that made Willa gasp and Wade groan. He pulled back with visible effort, his breathing ragged. "We should stop," he said roughly. "I want to do right by you. Wait until we are married." Willa knew he was correct, but it was hard to care about propriety when every nerve in her body sang for his touch. Still, she nodded and let him help her to her feet. They straightened their clothes and headed back to the house hand in hand, both giddy with plans and possibilities. Vivienne gave her blessing readily, though she insisted they wait at least until spring to marry. "Give yourselves time to plan properly," she advised, "and to be absolutely certain, though I think you two are well matched." The months between November and spring crawled by despite how busy they were. Christmas came and went, celebrated modestly but joyfully. Wade gave Willa a beautiful carved wooden box that Henry had made and Frank had lined with red velvet, filled with writing paper and envelopes. "For writing down your thoughts," Wade said, "or recipes, or whatever you want." Willa gave Wade a coat she had sewn herself, working on it in secret for weeks. It fit him perfectly, and the look on his face when he tried it on made all the pricked fingers and late nights worth it. The winter was hard but manageable. The ranch had enough supplies laid in, and the brothers had prepared the buildings well. They spent long evenings in the parlor, playing cards and talking, and Willa treasured these times of simple domestic happiness. This was what family felt like, what home should be. Frank and Vivienne grew closer, and Willa suspected her sister would not be far behind her in marriage. Frank was good for Vivienne, making her laugh and challenging her sharp mind. They argued constantly, but it was the kind of arguing that held affection at its core, two strong personalities learning to mesh. As winter thawed into spring, wedding preparations began in earnest. They planned to marry in April, in the small church in Las Lunas. The guest list would be modest, neighbors and a few friends from town, but Willa did not mind. She was not marrying for show. She was marrying for love. The night before the wedding, Vivienne helped Willa pack her few belongings to move them to the room Wade was preparing in the house. Frank and Henry would continue to use the bunkhouse, but Wade would move into the main house as Willa's husband. "Are you nervous?" Vivienne asked as she folded one of Willa's dresses. "Terrified," Willa admitted, "but in a good way. Like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown but beautiful." "He loves you very much," Vivienne said gently. "That much is obvious to anyone with eyes, and you love him. That is all that really matters in the end." "You think Mama and Papa would approve?" Willa asked wistfully. "I think they would be thrilled to see you so happy. They always wanted the best for us, and Wade Yates is certainly that for you." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the sky an impossible blue. Willa wore their mother's wedding dress, altered to fit her smaller frame, and carried wildflowers picked fresh that morning. Vivienne stood beside her as she married Wade in the simple church, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Wade's kiss was gentle and reverent, full of promise. The celebration afterward was joyful, with food and music and dancing. Willa found herself swept into Wade's arms for a dance, laughing as he twirled her despite his admitted lack of skill. "I cannot believe you are my wife," Wade said wonderingly. "Mrs. Willa Yates, it sounds perfect." "It feels perfect," Willa agreed, resting her head against his chest as they swayed to the music. That night, in the privacy of their room, Wade made love to her with exquisite care and patience. He took his time learning what made her sigh and gasp, murmuring constant reassurances and praise. Willa had been nervous, but Wade's tenderness made it wonderful, a physical expression of the love they shared. Afterward, lying tangled together in the sheets, Willa felt transformed. She was no longer the shy girl hiding behind her sister. She was Wade Yates' wife, beloved and confident in that love. The months that followed were the happiest of Willa's life. She and Wade settled into married life with surprising ease, as if they had been doing this for years rather than weeks. They worked the ranch together, making decisions as a team. Wade never made her feel lesser or dismissed her opinions. He valued her thoughts and trusted her judgment, and that respect deepened her love for him even more. By summer, Willa suspected she was pregnant. She kept the suspicion to herself for a few weeks, wanting to be certain before she told Wade. When her courses failed to come for the third month, and her belly began to show the faintest curve, she knew it was time. She chose to tell him on a quiet evening when they were alone, sitting on the porch watching the sunset. "Wade, I have news." He turned to her immediately, his attention complete. "What is it?" "We are going to have a baby." She watched his face carefully, hoping he would be pleased. For a moment Wade just stared at her, and then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. He let out a whoop of joy that probably carried all the way to town and swept her into his arms, spinning her around carefully. "A baby. We are having a baby." He set her down gently, immediately concerned. "Are you well? Should you be sitting? Do you need anything?" Willa laughed at his sudden solicitude. "I am fine. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I am healthy and strong. Still, we should be careful. No heavy lifting. More rest. Whatever you need, Willa. Anything at all." His protectiveness was endearing if slightly overwhelming. As the pregnancy progressed, Wade became even more attentive, constantly worried about her well-being. Vivienne found it hilarious, teasing Wade about his hovering, but Willa secretly loved how much he cared. The pregnancy was mostly easy, though the heat of summer made Willa uncomfortable in her later months. By October, she was enormous and eager to meet the baby who seemed to use her ribs as a practice target for kicks. Wade talked to her belly constantly, telling their unborn child stories about the ranch and promises about the life they would have together. Labor began on a cool November morning, exactly 1 year after Wade had proposed. Vivienne sent Frank racing for the doctor while she and Wade helped Willa through the contractions. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the day and into the night. Wade refused to leave her side despite Vivienne's suggestions that he might want to wait elsewhere. "I am not leaving my wife," Wade said firmly, holding Willa's hand as she squeezed it hard enough to hurt. "We are in this together." Finally, as dawn broke on a new day, their son entered the world with a lusty cry that announced his displeasure at the cold air. The doctor cleaned him and wrapped him in a blanket before placing him in Willa's arms. She looked down at the red, wrinkled face and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. "He is perfect," she whispered. "He is," Wade agreed, his voice thick with emotion. He traced a gentle finger down their son's soft cheek. "Hello, little one, I am your papa." They named him William, after Willa's father, with the middle name of James after Wade's father. Little William Yates was doted on by everyone on the ranch. Frank carved him toys while Henry fashioned a beautiful cradle. Vivienne sewed tiny clothes and blankets. Wade was an involved father from the start, changing diapers and walking the floor with William when he fussed at night, insisting that Willa rest when she could. "You carried him for 9 months and birthed him," Wade said when Willa protested that she could handle the night wakings. "The least I can do is help care for him now." Watching Wade with their son made Willa fall even more in love with her husband. He was patient and gentle, singing off key lullabies and making ridiculous faces to coax smiles from William. The baby clearly adored his father, his whole face lighting up when Wade entered the room. The following spring, Vivienne and Frank married in a ceremony much like Wade and Willa's had been. Willa stood beside her sister this time, holding William on her hip as she watched Vivienne pledge her life to Frank. Seeing her sister, so happy filled Willa with joy. They had both found love in the most unexpected way and built a life together that honored their parents' memory while creating something new. Another year passed, bringing changes and growth. The ranch continued to prosper under their combined efforts. Henry announced he was courting a girl from town, a quiet young woman who worked at the general store. Wade expanded the house, adding on rooms to accommodate their growing family. Willa discovered she was pregnant again in the spring of 1881. This pregnancy was harder than the first. She was sick more often and exhausted easily. Wade worried constantly, but William, at nearly 2 years old, kept them both busy and distracted. Their second child, a daughter they named Clara Me, was born in December just before Christmas. She had Willa's gray-blue eyes and Wade's dark hair, and William was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her constantly with his chubby toddler hands. "Gentle," Willa reminded him constantly. "She is very small." "Baby," William would say seriously, patting Clara's head with exaggerated care. Life settled into a new rhythm, busy and full. Vivienne had a son the following year, a boisterous boy they named Thomas. The ranch was now home to 3 young children, and the sound of laughter and play filled the air constantly. The brothers had built the failing property into something truly special, a prosperous ranch that employed several additional workers and ran cattle across hundreds of acres. Wade and Willa's love had deepened with time, maturing into something strong and steadfast. They still stole moments alone when they could, still kissed like newlyweds when they thought no one was watching. The passion between them had not faded but rather grown more profound, built on a foundation of trust and partnership and mutual respect. On a warm evening in the summer of 1883, Willa sat on the porch watching her children play in the yard. William, now nearly 4, was teaching 2-year-old Clara how to stack stones while baby Thomas toddled around them babbling happily. Wade emerged from the barn and crossed the yard to join her, settling onto the porch swing beside her and pulling her close against his side. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "How different my life is from what I imagined it would be," Willa said softly. 5 years ago, I was the shy girl hiding behind her sister, terrified of everything. Now look at us. A thriving ranch, beautiful children, a family we have built together." "I remember that day so clearly," Wade said. "Riding up and seeing you in the shadows behind Vivienne, I knew immediately. It was like something in me recognized something in you, like we were meant to find each other." "You terrified me," Willa admitted with a laugh, "declaring you wanted me when you did not even know me. I knew enough. I knew you were special, and I was right." Wade tilted her face up to kiss her properly, slow and deep. "I love you, Willa Yates, more with each passing day. I love you too. So much that sometimes I cannot believe you are real, that this life is real." "Very real," Wade assured her, "and only getting better." As if to prove his point, William came running up to the porch, his face bright with excitement. "Papa, Papa, come see. I stacked all the stones without them falling." Wade stood with a laugh, holding his hand out to Willa. "Come on, we have to see this monumental achievement." They walked hand in hand down to where the children played, admiring William's accomplishment and helping Clara with her own stack. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting everything in warm gold light. Willa looked around at her family, at the home they had built, at the man beside her who had seen her when she was invisible and chosen her when she felt unremarkable. The years continued to unfold with a rhythm that felt right. The children grew, William becoming a serious boy who loved working alongside his father, while Clara developed into a fierce little thing who was afraid of nothing. Vivienne and Frank's family expanded with the birth of twin girls in 1884, and Henry married his sweetheart and moved into a small house they built on the property. The ranch thrived beyond anyone's expectations. What had been a failing enterprise on the edge of collapse was now one of the most successful ranches in the territory. They had bought additional land, expanded the herd, and built a reputation for quality cattle. Willa managed the household accounts with the same skill her mother had possessed, and she and Vivienne started a vegetable garden that grew so abundantly they sold produce in town. Wade became a respected figure in Las Lunas, serving on the town council and helping to mediate disputes. People sought his counsel and valued his opinion. But no matter how busy he became, he always made time for his family. He never missed putting the children to bed or the evening hours he and Willa spent together talking about their day. In 1886, Willa gave birth to their third child, another son they named Jack. William, now 7, was thrilled to have a brother, while 5-year-old Clara declared the baby was boring and preferred playing with Vivienne's twins. The house was chaos and noise and constant motion, but Willa would not have changed it for anything. One evening, after finally getting all 3 children to bed, Willa joined Wade in the parlor where he was going over the ranch accounts. She settled beside him on the sofa, resting her head on his shoulder as she had done countless times before. "You ever miss it?" Wade asked suddenly. "The quiet life you had before I came crashing into it?" Willa considered the question seriously. She thought about those days after her parents died, the fear and uncertainty, the feeling of being lost. She thought about hiding behind Vivienne, too afraid to step forward and claim her own life. "No," she said firmly, "I do not miss that at all. That girl was living half a life, afraid of her own shadow. You gave me the courage to become fully myself. You saw something in me I did not see in myself, and you loved me into believing I was worth seeing." Wade set aside the account book and turned to pull her into his lap, cradling her close. "You were always worth seeing, Willa, always. I just got lucky enough to be the one who looked at the right moment." "We both got lucky," Willa said, kissing him softly. "You took a chance on a scared girl and turned her into a confident woman. You built a life with me that is better than anything I could have dreamed." "It is not finished yet," Wade murmured against her lips. "We have years ahead of us still, more memories to make, more adventures to have." "I am looking forward to every single one," Willa promised. The years proved Wade right. Life brought more challenges and more joys in equal measure. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, celebrated births and mourned deaths. Henry and his wife had children who added to the growing family. The ranch continued to expand and evolve. William grew into a responsible young man who clearly would take over the ranch operations someday. Clara proved to have a head for business that rivaled her mother's. Jack was the wild one, always getting into scrapes and making everyone laugh. Vivienne and Frank remained on the ranch, their partnership with Wade and Willa as strong as ever. The 4 of them had built something remarkable together, a legacy for their children and grandchildren. The failing ranch that 2 orphan sisters had struggled to maintain had become a thriving enterprise that supported multiple families and employed dozens of workers. But more than the financial success, they had created a home filled with love and laughter. The house that had once felt empty and sad now burst with life. Children ran through the halls, meals were loud and chaotic, and there was always someone to talk to or lean on when times got hard. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Wade took Willa back to the barn where he had proposed. He had decorated it with lanterns and flowers, creating a romantic space that made Willa's eyes fill with tears. "I wanted to remind you of that night," Wade said, taking her hands in his. When I asked you to marry me and you agreed despite barely knowing me." "I knew enough," Willa said, echoing his words from years ago. "I knew you were special." "We have built a good life together," Wade continued. "Better than I ever hoped for. You have given me 3 beautiful children, a home, a purpose. You have stood beside me through everything, and I want you to know that I would do it all again exactly the same way. Every choice that led me to you was the right one." "Wade," Willa whispered, overwhelmed by emotion. "I am not finished," he said with a smile. "I want to thank you, Willa, for taking a chance on a drifter who probably seemed crazy, for loving me even when I did not deserve it, for being my partner and my best friend, for building this incredible life with me. You are everything I could have wanted and more." Willa threw her arms around his neck, kissing him with all the love and passion she felt. They had been married 10 years, had 3 children, had weathered countless challenges, but the fire between them still burned as bright as that first kiss under the stars. "I love you," she said against his lips. "Now and forever. You are my greatest adventure, Wade Yates. And you are mine, Willa, always and forever." The years continued their steady march forward. The children grew into young adults with dreams and plans of their own. William married a sweet girl from a neighboring ranch and started his own family. Clara shocked everyone by announcing she wanted to go to school back east to study business. And though it broke Willa's heart a little to see her daughter leave, she supported Clara's ambitions. Jack followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a talented horseman and cattle handler. Willa and Wade aged together, their hair graying and their faces lining, but the love between them never wavered. They still stole kisses when they thought no one was looking, still held hands while walking around the property, still made each other laugh with inside jokes decades old. Vivienne and Frank remained close neighbors and dear friends. Henry and his family were constant presences in their lives. The ranch that had nearly been lost now supported multiple generations, a testament to hard work and determination and love. As Willa approached her 50th birthday, she found herself reflecting on the journey her life had taken. She thought about the shy, frightened girl she had been, hiding in shadows, convinced she was unremarkable. She thought about the moment Wade Yates had looked past her beautiful sister and seen her, truly seen her, and declared she was the one he wanted. That single moment had changed everything. It had given her the courage to step forward, to take a risk, to believe she was worthy of being chosen. From that moment had flowed everything else, all the joy and love and family that filled her life now. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching yet another sunset paint the New Mexico sky in brilliant colors, Wade reached over and took her hand. His hands were more weathered now, scarred from decades of ranch work, but his touch was still as gentle as it had been that first day. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, the same question he had asked countless times over the years. "Us," Willa said simply. "How one brave choice led to everything we have now. How you saw me when I felt invisible and loved me when I felt unlovable." "You were never unlovable," Wade said firmly. "You just needed someone to show you what I saw from the beginning, that you are extraordinary, Willa. You always have been." "We have had a good life together," Willa said softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. "The best life," Wade agreed. "And we are not done yet. We have grandchildren to spoil, more sunsets to watch, more years of loving each other. I plan to be by your side for all of it." "Promise?" Willa asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Promise," Wade said, sealing it with a kiss. "You are the one I want, Willa Yates. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. Always." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep purples and reds. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of family, of grandchildren playing and dinner being prepared, and life continuing in all its messy, beautiful glory. This was what Willa had dreamed of in those dark days after her parents' death, though she had not known it then. This sense of belonging, of being cherished, of building something that would outlast them both. Wade had given her all of that and more. He had seen the shy girl hiding behind her sister and recognized something precious. He had stepped forward with courage and declared his intentions clearly. He had proven through his actions that love was not about grand gestures alone, but about showing up every single day, about choosing each other again and again. As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Willa squeezed Wade's hand and felt him squeeze back. They did not need words anymore. After decades together, they could communicate in glances and touches, in the comfortable silence of two people who knew each other completely. This was their legacy. Not just the successful ranch or the children and grandchildren, though those were precious beyond measure. But this love they had built together, starting from a single moment when a cowboy saw a shy girl and said, "You are the one I want." That moment had rippled outward, creating waves that had shaped not just their lives but the lives of everyone connected to them. The shy girl was gone now, transformed through love and courage into a confident woman who knew her own worth. But Willa would never forget who she had been, because that girl's journey had led her to this perfect moment, sitting beside the man she loved more than life itself, watching the stars emerge over the land they had built together. Wade pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, and Willa settled against him with a contented sigh. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, as every tomorrow had for the past 3 decades. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. "I love you," Wade murmured into her hair. "I love you too," Willa replied, the words as true now as they had been the first time she spoke them. Always and forever. And under the vast New Mexico sky, surrounded by the family they had created and the life they had built together, Wade and Willa Yates sat in perfect contentment. The shy girl had stepped forward all those years ago, and in doing so had found everything she had ever needed. Love, family, home, and a partner who would walk beside her through every sunrise and sunset for the rest of their days. Their story had begun with a choice, with Wade's bold declaration and Willa's brave acceptance. It had unfolded through years of hard work and dedication, through joy and sorrow, through the everyday moments that built a life. And now, in the golden years of their marriage, they could look back and see how every challenge had been worth it, how every sacrifice had led to something beautiful. The ranch would continue after they were gone, passed down to their children and grandchildren. But more important than land or cattle or money was the example they had set. They had shown that love built on respect and partnership could weather any storm. They had proven that choosing each other every single day was what made a marriage strong. They had demonstrated that taking a chance on love, even when it seemed crazy or impractical, could lead to the most extraordinary life. As the night deepened and the temperature dropped, Wade and Willa finally rose from the porch and headed inside to the warmth of their home. Children and grandchildren filled the rooms, multiple generations under one roof for the evening meal. The table was crowded and loud, filled with laughter and storytelling and the comfortable chaos of family. Willa looked around at all the faces, seeing pieces of herself and Wade reflected back in their descendants. William had Wade's quiet strength, Clara had her determination, Jack had Wade's easy laugh. The grandchildren were a blend of both families. Dawson and Yates combined into something new and wonderful. This was what they had built. This love, this family, this legacy. And it had all started with a shy girl hiding behind her sister and a cowboy, brave enough to see her and say, You are the one I want." After dinner, after the dishes were washed and the children finally settled in their beds, Wade and Willa retired to their room. It was the same room where they had spent their wedding night so many years ago, though they had made changes and updates over time. The bed was more comfortable now, the curtains newer, but the essential character of the space remained the same. Wade helped Willa with the buttons on her dress, his fingers still nimble despite his age. She leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest, the steady beat of his heart. How many times had they stood like this over the years? How many quiet moments had they stolen in this room, away from the demands of ranch and family? "Thank you," Willa said softly. "For what?" Wade asked, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "For choosing me, for seeing me, for loving me so completely that I learned to love myself." Wade turned her in his arms, cupping her face in his hands the same way he had on their wedding day. "Willa Yates, you have been the greatest blessing of my life. Every day with you has been a gift. I am the one who should be thanking you." "Then we will thank each other," Willa said with a smile. "For taking a chance, for being brave, for building this beautiful life together." "Deal," Wade agreed, and kissed her with all the love and passion of a lifetime together. They had been young once, full of fire and uncertainty, learning each other's bodies and hearts. Now they were older, their passion mellowed but no less real, their knowledge of each other complete. They made love that night with the ease of long familiarity, each touch a conversation, each kiss a promise renewed. Afterward, lying tangled together in the darkness, Willa felt a profound sense of peace. This was where she belonged, in Wade's arms, in this house, on this land they had saved together. The scared girl who had hidden behind her sister was a distant memory. In her place was a woman who knew her own strength, who had loved and been loved, who had built something lasting and true. "What are you thinking about now?" Wade asked sleepily, his breath warm against her hair. "That I am exactly where I am supposed to be," Willa replied. "That every choice I have made, every step I have taken, has led me to this moment. And I would not change a single thing. Not even that first day when I probably seemed like a madman," Willa laughed softly. "Especially not that day. You were exactly what I needed, Wade. Someone who could see past my fears to the person I could become. Someone who loved me enough to wait while I found my courage." "You always had courage," Wade corrected gently. "You just needed a reason to use it. You gave me that reason. You gave me everything." They drifted off to sleep wrapped around each other, the way they had slept for decades. Outside, the ranch slept too, the animals settled in their barns, the land resting under the stars. The wind whispered through the cottonwoods, carrying stories of the past and promises for the future. The years would continue to pass, bringing change and growth and eventually loss. But the foundation they had built, the love they had nurtured, would endure. Their children would remember how their parents looked at each other, how they worked as a team, how they never stopped choosing each other. Their grandchildren would hear the story of how a cowboy saw a shy girl and declared she was the one he wanted, and how that girl found the courage to step forward and claim her happiness. It was a simple story in many ways, but it was theirs, and it had made all the difference. As dawn broke over the New Mexico landscape, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Wade and Willa woke together as they had for countless mornings. They dressed and prepared for another day of work and family and life. But first, they stood at their bedroom window looking out over the land they had saved and built and loved. "Another beautiful day," Wade observed, his arm around Willa's waist. "They all are," Willa replied, leaning into his embrace. "Every day with you is beautiful." Wade turned her to face him, his green eyes still as bright as they had been that first day, still looking at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. I love you, Willa Yates, today and always. I love you too, Wade Yates, forever and ever. They kissed in the morning light, two people who had chosen each other against the odds and built a life beyond their wildest dreams. The shy girl who had hidden behind her sister was long gone, transformed by love into a woman who knew her own worth. The cowboy who had seen her in the shadows had proven his devotion through decades of partnership and care. This was their happily ever after, not a fairy tale ending but a real life built on hard work and dedication and unwavering love. They had faced challenges and overcome them together. They had raised children and built a business and created a legacy. And through it all, they had never stopped loving each other, never stopped choosing each other, never stopped seeing the best in one another. As they headed downstairs to start their day, to greet their family and begin the work that would fill the hours until sunset, Willa felt a deep gratitude for the life she had lived. She had been blessed beyond measure, given more love and happiness than she had ever thought possible. And it had all started with one brave moment when she had stepped forward from behind her sister and into the life she was meant to live. The house filled with noise and laughter as the family gathered for breakfast. Children and grandchildren filled the rooms, multiple generations coming together to start another day. Wade caught Willa's eye across the crowded table and smiled, that special smile that was just for her, that said, "I see you and I love you and I choose you." Willa smiled back, her heart full to bursting. This was everything she had ever wanted, everything she had dreamed of in those quiet moments when she had dared to imagine a different life. Wade had given her the courage to claim it, and together they had made it real. The story that had begun with a cowboy's bold declaration and a shy girl's brave acceptance had unfolded into a life rich with meaning and purpose. They had loved deeply, worked hard, raised good children, and built something that would outlast them both. They had shown everyone around them what true partnership looked like, what real love could accomplish. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the land and promising another day of challenges and joys, Wade and Willa Yates faced it together as they always had. Hand in hand, heart to heart, partners in every sense of the word. The shy girl had found her courage, the cowboy had found his home, and together they had created a love story for the ages. Their legacy would live on long after they were gone, in the children they had raised, the land they had tended, the example they had set. But more than that, their love would endure as a testament to what was possible when two people chose each other completely, when they committed to building a life together through good times and bad, when they never stopped seeing the best in one another. This was their story, simple and profound, ordinary and extraordinary. The story of a shy girl who stepped forward and a cowboy who saw her worth. The story of two people who built a life together that was more beautiful than anything they could have imagined alone. The story of love in all its messy, glorious, wonderful reality. And it was a story that ended exactly as it should, with two people who had spent a lifetime loving each other, still choosing each other every single day, still finding joy in the simple act of being together. Still grateful for that first brave moment when everything changed, when Wade Yates looked at Willa Dawson and said, "You are the one I want. Come forward." She had come forward, and in doing so had found everything she had ever needed. Love, family, home, purpose, and a partner who would walk beside her through every moment of their lives. It was more than enough. It was everything.